Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I go through the comments on a pretty regular basis on all of my channels, but over here, I will screenshot comments that I see come up that I think would make for great topics for videos. I'm also more than willing to respond to any topics that you guys have. Years ago, people asked me to do like Ask Peter kind of segment over here, which I guess this is kind of turned into a little bit because I'm mostly responding to comments. But if you guys don't feel comfortable leaving a comment with your question or whatever below, feel more than free to DM me or email me a topic that you want me to talk about. Now, if you're really specific in the topic, I might kind of be a little bit more vague about it when I talk about it on video. But feel free to DM me or email me about any videos that you want me to make over here, because I love responding to your comments and your questions that you guys have. And so this person responded to my video, and the video was, hold on just a second, my struggling video, and they said, Peter, another great video. Thank you. I appreciate it. I listened to a therapist on the radio, and although I don't always agree with her, she did say something recently that really resonated with me. A caller phoned in very upset that her pet died, and the therapist said, unfortunately, you're going to be sad, and you're going to be depressed, etc. She then said, I can't fix normal. And I think if we remind ourselves that when something happens, we are going to respond accordingly. Things in life are going to make us angry, mad, sad, depressed, etc. And we just have to ride the wave and know that it's temporary and that we will get through it. All the examples that you gave in this video are proof of that. Thank you again. And I just want to say, I appreciate your kind words. This comment is such a truism in my life. And it's something that I think took me a really long time to really understand fully. And I don't even know that I fully understand it today. I'm getting there, right? But this idea that when we're going through something, we're going to have an emotional response to whatever we're going through. And that's normal, which is why this therapist said on the radio, I can't fix normal, right? Because that's normal. It's normal for us to have an emotional response to going through something difficult in our life, whether that's losing a job, losing a relationship, whether that's going through the passing of a pet, which I think is something that we don't talk enough about in society, is we don't talk about grieving the loss of a pet, which is so difficult. I did a video, I don't even know what channel it was, but I think it was on my Peter Does Stuff video, or channel. I did a video months ago about like grieving the loss of a pet, and I just recently, it's interesting because I get comments, you know, in real time, and somebody responded to it and they said, I'm going through this right now, and I saw your video, and they didn't even know who I was or anything. They had just seen my video come up, and they were like, I'm so happy that you're talking about this because, like, you know, whatever. Not a lot of people talk about it. And I remember when Pee passed away, I watched a lot of videos, you know, from people talking about grieving the loss of pets, and just like hearing their stories really helped me, and it normalized it for me. And I can remember like watching videos of vets, you know, like, and vets talk about that, you know, they're taking care of animals and, you know, all this kind of stuff, and working with the families that had lost animals. And like, it really helped me. I think hearing other people's stories, I think we grow up in a world conditioned to not have an emotional response to things. You know, it's like we use these words like authenticity and being genuine, being vulnerable, being raw. But I think those are sometimes the most difficult things in this world to be, in all honesty. I think we grow up in a world, you know, I grew up in a family that was very emotional, very loving, and very kind. And even then, I can remember that it was never like frowned upon to be emotional. And it's interesting because, you know, today in videos, I cry all the time. I'm passionate. I was not that as a kid at all. Like, if my dad was sitting here right now, he would tell you Peter was very, like, I mean, I talked in school and to my friends and stuff like that, but during like difficult times, I was very quiet, and I was, like he would say, like, I never threw temper tantrums. I just wasn't loud. I didn't cry hardly at all as a kid. And I think what happened was I just stuffed, you know? And then when I found alcohol and drugs, it was like, okay, this is a way for me to mute the pain that I feel inside, because for so long I had been stuffing all these feelings and all these emotions, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then I found drugs and alcohol, and drugs and alcohol allowed me to like emotionally deal with this. You know, it's like when people talk about self-medicating, they're not just talking about physical pain, they're talking about emotional pain. Well, I was self-medicating emotional pain because I didn't know what to do with it otherwise. And so when I found alcohol and I found drugs, it was like, oh my God, for one, something is taking this relief away from me. Well, when I got sober, I didn't know what to do because I had all these emotions and all these feelings that had been pushed down for so long inside that wanted to come out, because I'm being told to like do inventory and share what's going on with me and be vulnerable and being authentic. And so that's all wanting to come out, but at the same time, I'm wanting to push it down because I don't have the drugs and the alcohol to mute it anymore, you know? I remember being with a friend of mine, one of my closest friends. She got sober right after I did. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't still be here today because we went to so many meetings and stuff at first. And she was dating this guy in my aftercare group that ended up going back out. And she was so upset about it. And I'll never forget. She said, this is the thing that sucks the most about being sober is you have all these emotions and all this pain, but you don't have anything to take it away. You don't have anything to mute it. And I was like, God, that's so accurate. It's so true, you know? And I think we live in a world, like I said, where we're basically taught to not have an emotional response to things. So when the therapist says I can't fix normal, it is 100% normal to be angry when somebody says mean things about you or says hurtful things. It is absolutely normal to be angry if somebody hurts your feelings or to be sad. It's absolutely normal to be ecstatic if you got a job or be excited if you're going on a vacation, you know, or be happy if you're falling in love. Like those are emotions we don't talk. We talk a lot about the sad, angry emotions, but we don't talk much about the joyful emotions, right? But that's normal. And I think that's accepted in our society. It's accepted that, you know, everybody like, you know, cheers at graduations and, you know, gets excited at weddings. But like when somebody passes away, it's like there's a time limit on pain, or you can cry, but don't cry too much. You know, I can remember my dad at my grandfather's funeral. My dad was somebody that did show his emotions, but I think he felt in that moment he had to pull it together for everybody else. But I remember we were in the bathroom and my dad like stood at the sink and he just kind of like cried for a couple minutes and wiped his eyes. And I'll never forget him saying this to me because I think it's so bizarre because my dad was always like a very emotional person, just a hugger, you know, very emotional, always like wore his heart on his sleeve. And he looked at me and he said something like, this is just between you and I or something. I don't know why I remember that, but I think that my dad very much grew up in the generation that men don't cry, you know, but he didn't pass that on to me. My dad didn't pass it on to me. I just didn't cry. I just wasn't a crier. I think I suffered silently is what I did. And I think I did that for a lot of years. Even after I got sober, I suffered silently. I don't think I knew really how to share what was going on. And I've shared this a lot, you know, that when so I didn't go to meetings for 4 years, and when I came back in, I came in like a newcomer. And I can remember when I came back in, and I heard this speaker lead that I was listening to online, and this woman said, you know, and talking about like when people refer to like going back to drinking as falling off the wagon, she said, it's hard to fall off the wagon when you're sitting in the middle of it. When you're doing all this stuff and you're surrounding yourself by people that are sober, it's hard to fall off the wagon, right? And I thought that was such a great analogy, and I can remember that was like the changing point for me, where I was like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to go to meetings and I'm going to trust people and I'm going to work steps, like I'm going to work step. Like I'm going to do it. Like I'm putting everything into it, you know? I'm going to do everything that's suggested to me. Because in the past, I had like questioned everything that I was told to, you know, I was suggested to do. You know, I'd be like, well, I don't understand why I have to do this. Well, I don't know. You know, I would question a lot of it. I did it, but I would question it, you know? I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, if people suggest things for me because they think it would be better for me, I'm going to share openly in meetings. I got so angry in meetings. I can remember like screaming in meetings and being like, I just like, I can't believe that God took my mom. I grieved literally, you know, 4 years later, the loss of my mom, or 3 years later, the loss of my mom in meetings. You know, that was when I started grieving the loss of my mom. And then that led to me being able to be open and vulnerable about all things in my life, you know, and, but it was scary for me. It was really, really scary for me because I do think that we live in this world where it's like, it's okay to cry, but just don't cry too much. It's okay to be angry, but don't be too angry. You know, I've even said in my videos, like, I think it's important for me to express my anger, but I don't want to stay stuck in it. I don't want to go to a place of rage, right? Well, those are boundaries I put on myself. I don't want to live in constant anger for long periods of time because I don't think that it's healthy for me. I don't think in the long run I benefit from that. I also don't think that I benefit from being in a constant state of grief for years on end. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for anybody. also don't know that I think it's great to be in a constant state of excitement and joy for years on end. I don't know how you could really retain. Maybe it would be good to be. I mean, maybe that would be good to be in a constant state of joy for just years on end. I don't really know how you hold on to that, you know? But I don't think that, I think it's important to process through those situations. And so I think this is such a fantastic quote that she says here when she says, you know, I can't fix normal. And it's normal to be sad and to be depressed and to be angry about these things that happen in our lives. But how many of us grew up in homes and situations? I mean, I grew up in a home where, you know, my parents would actively ask me, my mom would ask me, like, well, how do you feel about something? Or how, you know, I mean, like, school's a good example. I talk a lot about being bullied, right? And my mom would be like, every single day, she would say, how was school today? Were people nice to you? Whatever. Yes, everybody was nice to me, whatever. And I lied about that because I didn't want my mom to have an emotional response. I didn't allow my mom to have an emotional response to how I was being treated as a kid in school, right? I didn't allow her that. I shielded her from that. And I think we do that a lot with people. And I think it's because we're sometimes afraid of what to do with emotions. If we have somebody like screaming, you know, I can remember one of our friends, this was before my mom passed away. It was like a year before. It was one of my very dear friends. Her mom passed away. And I can remember that, and it was very, very tragic how her mom passed away. She took her life. And I can remember, like, we all went over to her grandmother's house, and she and her brother were just, like, screaming outside. I mean, it was like there was, like, 20 people standing around, like, outside, you know, and they were just, like, screaming at the sky. I mean, like, blood-curdling screams. And I can remember when I pulled up, like, Tanya was there, and I came over to Tanya, and I started to walk, like, towards my friend, and Tanya, like, grabbed my hand, and she said, just let her scream. I don't know why that chokes me up so much. And I just looked at her, and I said, I just want to give her a hug, and she goes, you can give her a hug later. Just let her scream. She goes, she needs to scream right now. And I think we're so afraid of that, you know? We're so afraid of screaming and being angry and being sad, you know, because that passion, that feeling that we have towards people or situations in our life move us so greatly, right? That so many of us don't express our emotions, or we stay silent so much in life because we're afraid of that. We're afraid of what other people will think, mostly. We're afraid of not being able to contain it once we let it out. And I think it's important to, you know? And that is normal. And this comment is so affirming of that. It's 100% normal, you know? And that's something that I've had to really, like, I guess, relearn throughout my life, because I think that I put myself in situations where it's like I always cry at the weirdest things. I mean, and this was, I don't feel like thinking back on that was a weird moment to cry, but like a song will just come on and I all of a sudden cry, or somebody will say something in a meeting and I'm like bawling. You know, everybody's looking at me like, why is he crying? Well, it has, you know, really nothing to do with, it's reminding me of something. I'm not embarrassed of that anymore. I just let myself cry, you know? I just let myself cry and know that that's just part of who I am. And I love that part of myself today, because there was such a long period in my life where I wouldn't allow that to come out, you know? So let out whoever you are, you know? And I love this comment so much. Thank you for it. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.